Welcome back to Respect Your Game. And we got some big news in the PWHL because we have a champion, not a new champion, but the Minnesota Frost are back and they won back-to-back PWHL Walter Cups in a 2-1 overtime victory over Ottawa. And they went into game 4 of the finals. It was wild, filled with drama, but the Minnesota Frost won the best of 5 game series 3-1. And it was a home ice win for Minnesota at Xcel Energy Center. But it didn't always start great. The Frost came into the playoffs being the league's fourth seed in their second straight season. They actually lost both game 1 in both the semis and the final series, and then go on to win 3 straight in both series. So they clearly know what they're doing, even though it might not always start off to a hot start, but that means you cannot count Minnesota out in those situations. But Natalie, just looking at this back-to-back championship for the Minnesota Frost, what was your initial reaction to hearing this?
It's almost like it's the state of hockey. Why not? Why not twice? Let's go again. And I feel like the Minnesota Frost just had some fire going into the playoffs, and that was a huge conversation for us in Boston to talk with them about. Ken Klee was just talking about the importance of acknowledging the moment, acknowledging the pressure that they were facing. He said there's no reason, there's no way for us to hide from it. We have to talk about it. We have to go in. We have to put our best foot forward, best skate forward, and they won 8-1. So obviously there was something that was fueling their fire. They had eyes on the prize. It was funny because all year it kind of felt like Minnesota was the one team Boston really was having trouble against, and it kind of felt like, oh, is this a rivalry that's about to start? Is it going to be Minnesota and Boston, and whenever they're in town, that's going to garner the biggest crowd? I feel like Minnesota could just be, the Florida Panthers of the PWHL right now. It's kind of like frustrating to play them because they just pull out all the stops when the time is necessary. And I mean, these are players that have played in Olympic games, played in gold medal games. They know what it takes to win. But I think it's even cooler that they got to play on home sheet, because last year they won in the Songus Center. And I mean, that capacity, there's only a couple of thousand versus the NHL arena of the Excel Center. So I think that's just a really cool way for them to put the cherry on top. Even more special too. It probably felt like two different championships, because last year they were PWHL Minnesota. This year they're the Minnesota Frost, and they won at home. So I think that probably just makes it extra special.
100%. And not just for the team and the fan base, but for Liz Schepers, who scored the game winning goal in overtime. She's
Yeah.
local from Minnesota. So just imagining what that means to her and her family, and just probably growing up too. You never even probably thinking that you would get to play in a league that didn't exist when she was growing up there, right? Which is just so crazy cool to think about. But what's also really awesome about this championship is just the impact that the PWHL has had on a second season, right? In Monday's final game featured a
Yeah.
playoff crowd, a high playoff crowd of 11,000 fans. There's so many people, and it's all 11.6% increase from last year's final. So just looking at, and
Mhm.
kind of what we talked about earlier with the WNBA, like there are these spikes, there are
Yeah.
these new record breaking viewership and fan attendance, which I think is so exciting for women's sports. And not that it's never been there,
Mhm.
but we're just seeing it more noticeably, I think, now. I think it's always been on the rise and always been a very present thing that people care about, but it's just awesome to see how well
Yeah.
celebrated and supported these women are.
Yeah, you're right. And it's just opportunity for more people to get involved, whether you're playing or watching or working. It's just creating so many new opportunities. Also think about the economic impact that this league has brought to these states and these arenas. The takeover tour this year, I mean, they went to 9 different places. Vancouver saw 19,000 fans, which I think, don't quote me on it, but I think it was more than all but one home game for the Vancouver Canucks. I think that was what I was told this year. So, long story short, they just had a ton of people come out for this PWHL game in Vancouver, which is why they put a team there. Also, Seattle, they had a massive crowd there. So, there you go, West Coast. PWHL goes West Coast. I was actually able to go to the game in St. Louis too, and it was just amazing to see the city just support these teams that were not representing St. Louis. But the fact that they were there, they were wearing New York Sirens jerseys, they were wearing jerseys from other teams in the league in St. Louis just to watch a PWHL game. So it's been really cool, and it just shows there's some future to this league, and it's really exciting.
Definitely. And it's smart, right? It's smart to do those
Yeah.
satellite games in the sense those neutral site games in places that are hockey markets, right? The Pacific Northwest,
Yeah.
100% a hockey market. And then you can really test out, hey, is there a fan base for this? Do people care? And I think it's really smart, but you can also
Hmm.
see how the planning was definitely already going on when they were like, boom, Seattle, boom, Vancouver, right? They knew what they were doing by
Yeah.
putting the teams in that area. But I think it's so exciting too because it also opens up new opportunities for women's ice hockey players coming out of the college game. Because initially, now you only have a certain
Yeah.
number of teams, which is a small amount of roster spots that we're seeing in the WNBA. There were a ton of high caliber, elite players in the college game who didn't even get to make their WNBA team that they got drafted to because there's only 12 rosters, active roster spots. And so I'm really excited because
Hmm.
I think this will also open the door for new college high level hockey players to now play professionally.
Yeah, I mean, you might know her personally, Abby Newhook at Boston College. I remember asking her last year during the Bean Pot, like, what are your hopes and dreams and future aspirations? And she's like, well, now with this new league, the PWHL, I'm hoping that I can go pro. And it's great because I just saw her name on the draft eligibility list for this year. So I'm excited. I think there's 14 Hockey East names on the list this year that could potentially be drafted from UNH, Boston College, Northeastern. Really, really exciting. And I'm pumped because these are players that I've covered the past 2 years, and now it's like, first of all, oh, they're growing up and they're moving on. But the second opportunity for them is they get to go pro and they get to get paid for it. So it's really exciting. And this year in particular, there were a couple players like Megan Carter and Katie Knoll out of Northeastern, Gwyneth Phillips out of Northeastern. Anytime that they were in town or their team was in town, half the Northeastern hockey team was there supporting them. So it's just really cool to see the opportunity and just these girls that I've kind of seen, grow up, for a lack of better terms, like reach their dreams, and a dream that they probably didn't even know would be possible for them growing up because they didn't really know where things were going or what it could look like. So it's awesome.
Definitely. And even beyond just on the ice, the opportunities that it opens up off the ice for working for
Hmm.
the team in their management, in their social
Yeah.
media, in their marketing, like whatever it is. I think, a lot of women
Yeah.
and a lot of girls that I'm friends with say, oh, I want to work in sports. I want to work in sports. And adding more teams creates more opportunities for women to work in sports and do
Right.
a little bit like what you and I are doing right now. But I think what's also a little bit fun to talk about too is that we know we're going to have Seattle. We know that we're going to have a Vancouver team. But if there was a third city, is there a city that you feel like, man,
Yeah.
a PWHL team would do so well there? Because I know I've heard talk about Denver, potentially Detroit. I heard somebody say Quebec City.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a city that you're like, man, if I got to add a third place right now to add into this expansion, is there a special place that you would want it?
Well, statistically speaking, what you just mentioned was pretty close. It was a close choice because Quebec City was one of the top locations, as well as Detroit, and Detroit had like a possible expansion game not only this year but last year too. So Detroit was kind of a place that the league looked like they were taking a look at. It's funny because I was actually getting messages on like LinkedIn from people in Detroit, like, hey, do you think the PWHL is coming? And it was like a mixture of men and women. And it was just like, wow, Detroit really wants a team. So I feel like Detroit would have been cool. However, for travel, I think it was smart to put two teams on the West Coast because now that they can go out there, they can stay out there, have a little series with Vancouver, a little series with Seattle, Minnesota's halfway. But if you talk to the teams, I heard a couple of players say Nashville would be fun. I think somewhere in Florida would be fun. Charlotte would be fun. So I think going forward, I'm going to say Nashville. I think Nashville would be a great market for hockey. Obviously, the Predators do well there. I'd love to see the PWHL have a team a little further south. But they just continue to do numbers in Canada and other places in the north part of the country. So we'll see. But I think Nashville would be pretty sweet. I've never been there actually, but I know it's great. So I'm going to say that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that I'm actually in Nashville, Tennessee as we speak. So I'm all
Oh
for
my
it. I think
God,
if
you're
I
kidding.
yelled at my window right now, people would be like, yeah, let's do it. PWHL, come on. So we'll see. I think if you ask the players that, they would be all for it. I think they would absolutely love
Yeah,
going to Nashville and having a team, especially too, even if you're not playing for the Nashville team, you get to go to Nashville and probably spend a few days there, you know?
right.
The
Yeah,
Prince Arena is right down on Broadway, so I think that's a great
yeah.
idea. And if it does end up happening, it was Natalie who said it first. You all can thank Natalie for
Oh
that
gosh.
location. Well, Natalie, I know that you
If
spent a
we're
lot of
well, if
time
it's
with the. No, what'd you say?
I was just gonna say, if there's a team in Nashville, I'm praying that they send me to cover a game
Yeah.
because once again, I've never been to Nashville. You're there now, maybe you can give us a few tips, but no, that would just be great. And you think about the travel and the way that these players kind of utilize their time throughout these cities. It was a bunch of like sightseeing and all that kind of stuff. So Nashville would be great. We're just gonna put the nail in the coffin there. Let's go Nashville.
I'm all about it. I cannot wait to clip this when you get that job and they send you down here. And we're happy in Boston right now for sure. But
Right.
I'm excited for that. But just looking back at this past season, is there a standout memory or a favorite moment that you have from this last PWHL year?
Oh gosh, and it's so funny because like memories are flashing in my brain right now. I think there's just like little funny things. I think for me the biggest like wow moment was it was just fun for the players to like get to know me because it was my first year reporting in the PWHL and I've never reported on professional hockey, which has always been a dream of mine. So just seeing these players and them getting familiar with me, I think it was towards the end of the season. Hannah Bilka was returning from injury, and I was hoping to get a phone call with her. And it was funny because I was talking to the communication PR person to try to set it up, and she was like, "Just so you know, Hannah Bilka is excited to talk to you because she's seen you do your baseball work, and she's like, oh, I get to talk to Natalie." And it's funny because to me, she's the superstar, she's the celebrity, and I get to talk to her. But it was just cool that these players, get to see me. And there was a night that I was in arena hosting at the TD Garden, and Jessica DiGirolamo was a part of an activation for me. I was giving a prize and said Jessica was here, and she came out and asked to take a photo with me. And it was really cool to see the players and their enthusiasm for honestly the media. Like I'm here to tell their stories and here to tell the things that they want to get out on the broadcast. And I always, it's just special for me to live those kinds of things. But I think, St. Louis was outstanding because it was great to see the enthusiasm of the fans that didn't have a PWHL team, but just excited to see a game. There was a time where I was about to go live and a fan in the audience was just chucking friendship bracelets at Toronto Scepters as they were coming off the ice and looked at me and I said, "You want one?" And I said, "Yeah, I want one." I've never had a friendship
Yeah.
bracelet before, so I caught it, put it
Like
on,
this is
brought
my
the show
Taylor
on air.
moment.
I know. I'm like, I have friends now. This is great. She was throwing out airheads the game before too, so she's one of my favorites. But no, it's just it's an incredible community. It's a very welcoming and belonging fan base, and I think it's just a ton of fun. I think the players are having a ton of fun with it, and just the growth in one season alone. I mean, a few months ago we were talking to the GM about being called the Boston Fleet, and now we're talking about an expansion draft. So it's incredible to see where it's come from, where it's going, and it's really just special to be a part of.